While we have taken every endeavour to provide accurate and practical information, the material on this video is provided for the purposes of information only and should not be relied upon. You should seek independent advice from your solicitor and your business advisors as to how the year 2000 problem affects your business and what steps you need to take to help protect your business. It's only a little problem, but it's one with potentially very big effects. It starts with the hidden clocks that regulate computer systems and those on the microchips that control a host of electronic devices. Until recently, many of these clocks were made with only 2 digits to represent the year. It was taken as read that every year would begin with the number 19.
So what will happen then is that the computers will think when they move from 99 to 2000 that they have gone backwards by 99 years rather than forwards by 1 year. And also because the computer thinks it's in the year 1900 rather than the year 2000, the days of the week are laid out differently. And the first day of 2000 is actually a Saturday, but the computer will think it's a Monday.
Major corporations, for the most part, are taking the year 2000 problem very seriously indeed. But how are New Zealand's small and medium-sized businesses dealing with the issue?
The elements of the problem are, first of all, the computer systems and the information that lives on them, and the communications equipment which links them. The next one is other types of equipment and plant which contain embedded electronic chips, which unfortunately also may have the problem. The third area is the other organisations on which you depend. You can get it right, but they won't. And the fourth one is the collective effect, when we get to the year 2000, on the economy of all the various parts of year 2000 which haven't been fixed.
If I lost the computer software support, it would be a little bit of a disaster for us for a while.
The year 2000 problem for our own company would be substantially severe.
I think it's extremely important that organisations understand that this is a real problem. It could affect them. It could affect their survival as a business. In many cases it won't, but until they have a look at it, they don't know which category they're in.
Initially we thought it just was restricted to our PCs, and we thought in 1999 we'll throw away all our PCs and buy some new ones. And subsequently we've realised that there are a whole lot of other systems that will be affected.
I guess on the 1st of January, if you have no power, then it doesn't matter what procedures you've put in place to make sure you're Y2K compliant, the lights don't go on, the security system doesn't work because there's no power, then you're really in shook anyway.
For the smaller kind of business like ourselves, I don't think it's a huge issue, but it could be if the main companies are struggling to supply the smaller companies.
Because we're all dependent on one another, I think it's important that we all take it seriously and all survive, if we can.
If the Y2K problem caused a lot of minor disruptions for everybody, and through that we lost 3 or 4 days of business and therefore production in New Zealand, that could very easily feed into a significant macroeconomic downturn.
My advice would be, if you're not already doing something, I would start today.
If there's a popular picture of what fixing the year 2000 problem looks like, it would be something like this. WestpacTrust's Y2K compliance team consists of 100 people working on the computer aspects of the problem and 42 working on the business implications.
WestpacTrust is taking the year 2000 problem very seriously indeed. It gets priority for resources, and of course it's something that we have had to work on for some time because we have a number of services and products that already extend beyond that date. So we have been working on this problem for some time now. But I think it's important for everybody to understand this isn't a technology problem, this is a business problem. And so we have approximately 29 business units within the bank, all with their own programs, and we have a solid core of experienced people monitoring those plans.
The big corporations are gearing up for the year 2000, but what about small businesses? Radford's is a Wellington furniture retailer.
We became aware of the year 2000 problem around about 2 or 3 years ago when public reporting on it started gaining momentum, basically. At that stage, I guess we focused on it as being mainly a computer and computer systems problem. I guess it was another year or two before we focused on the fact that there are other aspects of our business that could be influenced or impinged upon by the Y2K problem. One being your PABX system, your leased lines, your FPOS, air conditioning, cooling, controlled access doors, security systems. We actually hadn't focused on that. We hadn't realised at all.
As time goes on, we're learning a lot more about the extent to which you find the problem in embedded electronic chips. It's very unlikely to be a problem in household appliances, for instance. Where it is likely to be a problem is in terms of control equipment, communications equipment, that type of thing within organisations or between organisations.
For example, one we thought of maybe 6 months ago was, gosh, what about our chip-driven appliances we sell? Are they all going to be compliant, or we're going to have a rush of insurance claims or customers coming and saying these pieces of equipment don't work anymore? So we rang the appliance dealers concerned, and they all assured us that yes, their appliances they had on sold to us were indeed compliant, or if they weren't, they're working on the problem. But for the most part, yes, they are compliant.
Duncan and Taylor builders have thought of Y2K mainly in terms of computer gear.
We've put a little bit of thought into the year 2000. I've checked out with our computer supplier of our package, and they tell us that they've checked it all out, and we just go in and change it over to the year 2000. Whether that works or not is another thing.
I think it is quite possible that some organisations will not have any exposure to the problem within their own systems. But, of course, they can be absolutely okay, but still be brought down because, say, someone whom they depend on as a supplier fails to deliver because of their year 2000 problems.
No, I haven't asked our suppliers about any consequence of the year 2000 and their computers. I've never really given it a thought about that side of it, but if they have major problems and can't supply us with bats and timber and all that sort of stuff, it's going to put a hold on our jobs and what we supply to our clients. So it is a little bit of a worry and a concern, that area.
So you want to establish that they are handling it properly, and that means asking them, what are you doing about the year 2000 problem? I think it's reasonable for you to expect that they will keep you informed on their progress. And I think that if you start to think that they're not going to succeed, then you will have time to make other arrangements to find another supplier.
No, I've had no problems contacting anyone in the supply chain, whether it be manufacturer or utility supply. We're all in the same boat, and none of us want to have any disasters, expensive disasters in particular, happening on the 1st of January. So most people, everyone I've contacted has been very receptive and said, yes, we're working on it and we hope you are too.
If a company feels that it's worried about the year 2000 progress of its telephone company or its bank, then it shouldn't be at all embarrassed about approaching that organisation. But I think, in fact, we would expect the large organisations like that to be talking to their customers.
I think that large New Zealand companies are probably quite likely to be ready. They're thinking very carefully about what needs to be done. The risk, I think, is that small businesses are the ones who are not going to be prepared. And because New Zealand economy is so dominated by small businesses, it is that lack of preparedness that can cause all the disruption.
We, of course, receive services from a number of suppliers ourselves. So we sit somewhere in the middle. We have services that we get in, and we have a program in place where we are rigorously checking that those suppliers of us are compliant, that they know where they are with their programs, that we've got our own programs, and part of what we're doing today is hopefully to explain to our customers that they're at the other end of the chain. They need to be doing something about it as well.
The real risk is that there will be a lot of minor events going on, everybody being disrupted just a little bit, everybody suffering just a little bit of nuisance. But combined together, that may feed into quite significant economic effects.
Wayne Horrobin and Sarah Hodge run a plant nursery on the Kapiti coast, employing 6 people.
Well, we use computers quite extensively, primarily in our dispatch area for managing our dispatch and creating labels for our end users. We also use the computers in the normal way with accounting and payroll systems, that sort of thing, in the way any small manufacturing business would. We became aware of the year 2000 problem a couple of years ago with the media exposure that we've all had, and We at first perhaps didn't consider it to be such a problem for us, being so small, but as I've thought more and more about it, I've realised that there are some implications in our own systems that I have to address. We're unique in that we can write our own software, so I've been able to get back into it and make all the adjustments necessary that will enable our systems to go into the year 2000 and function properly. The only area that we have doubt about is an irrigation controller that we use to control our watering. It's electronic and that it may have an embedded chip in it. It has a 7-day cycle system on it, and there's no way that I can alter the date on it. So I'll be waiting on the 1st of January to see whether the water does in fact begin. If it doesn't, we'll be in the middle of summer and the consequences will be quite difficult for us. We'll have to have some sort of plan to perhaps turn the systems on manually and override them if there is a problem.
I guess the most important thing is actually to sit down, take some time out and write a list of all those things that could possibly be influenced by the Y2K problem. Generally that'll be things that are either computer driven or chip driven. Everything from your FPOS to your lifts to your computer systems. Then I think I'd rank priorities. If one of them didn't work, what would the effect be on your business? So actually prioritise which would have the major effect right down to which would have the minor effect, and start from the top and work down. Ring your suppliers, ring your software programmers, ring whoever and find out whether you will be affected and how.
It is important to write it all down because you need to be able to show afterwards that you handled this thing in a responsible way. And so that anybody who wants to start arguing with you after the event because maybe something went wrong, you can say, well, I handled this as well as I possibly could. It wasn't my fault that so-and-so, who I depend on, couldn't supply me with stuff that I had undertaken to supply to you. That sort of situation.
Good business is not the only reason for companies to take Year 2000 problems seriously. For directors, it's also a matter of legal self-protection. Gavin Adlam is a lawyer who specialises in the issue.
The most obvious legal issues with Year 2000 are the supply of people who supplied goods and services that fail because computers fail or equipment fails. But it's actually very much wider than that. There's a whole lot of issues arising out of the supply chain, continuity of operations, and there's a whole lot of issues arising out of compliance with safety and environmental legislation.
Nova Gas Limited is a medium-sized company that manufactures a natural gas substitute from landfill gas and distributes that, plus natural gas, to customers like hospitals, councils and factories. They're well aware of the full consequences of Y2K failure.
If we couldn't supply to our customers would change to our competitors, I would think. And plus, we would feel very obliged to make sure that we didn't do them any economic damage. There are probably 4,000 or 5,000 people employed at all of those sites. Clearly, if they run out of gas, that's unacceptable to them and to us.
If you've agreed to sell something and for some reason you can't, you failed in your obligations. If you're trying to buy something and it doesn't arrive, then you can't do whatever it was you're going to do with it. You haven't got your inputs. And legal obligations and rights and disputes arise out of those sorts of disruptions.
We first became aware of it, I did about 2 years ago, when a friend who's a computer consultant was discussing it animatedly and at length, and I didn't actually believe him at first. I thought it was rather exaggerated, but since then I've read a bit more about it, and a number of other suppliers and customers are also interested to see what we're doing. So we asked our consultants, Intellects, who designed this plant for us, to come up with a report on what could be affected and to do a full audit. And subsequently they've done a full audit of the whole company, and they're about 90% of the way through that.
Anyone who has responsibility for an organisation, it doesn't matter how small it is quite capable of managing their Year 2000 risk. The thing they've got to get out of their heads is that they need to understand the technical stuff. They don't need to do that. If they find that there's a possibility of an exposure, then they will go to technical people for those answers. But the managing of it, it's their risk. They need to do it and they can do it.
Civil Design Services is a Lower Hutt firm of consulting engineers and surveyors employing about 30 people. The company is a local authority trading enterprise owned by the Lower Hutt City Council.
We have a number of computer-driven software packages within the office environment that we have, but we also have a number of technical pieces of equipment in the field which also provide and have a backup using pieces of computer software. Our company recently completed the hardware analysis that we were looking at for year 2000. We have a number of software applications that we need to check over the next 15 months with our own suppliers to make sure they are compliant. We're fairly confident that we will actually be able to go through the year 2000 issue without any major disruption to our services, and therefore being able to provide ongoing services to our own clients. We have had only to date one inquiry from a client who uses our services regarding year 2000 issues, and that issue will need to be dealt with at the same time.
We've been queried by a number of customers and suppliers, and we're now getting regular surveys about what we're doing about the Y2K. So it's quite good to have been able to done the audit, and then we can just write back and say, yes, we've done an audit, and here's the position, and in 3 months' time we will be fully compliant.
None of us want to have egg over our faces, so we're doing the best we can. Where we did nothing, sat back and said, oh well, let's let it happen, then certainly we could be held responsible.
If you've done the due diligence, if you've checked carefully to find out as best as you can in the light of available knowledge what you can do about it, and nevertheless you get it wrong, then you probably won't be liable. You should have contingency plans so that if it does go wrong you can remedy any damage, and that particularly applies in the compliance area. But there will be some litigation undoubtedly, and people who've done nothing will be the ones who get hurt.
Well, the companies that have thought about how they're going to manage their risk are going to be in much better position than anybody else. And I think the way to manage risk is basically to look up and down, look both ways, look at your suppliers and think very carefully about whether they're ready and how you're going to handle any possible disruption caused by your suppliers. It may be that you may want to think about increasing your inventories as the time approaches, and also look down, look at people you're selling to, and think about what disappearance of their custom for a day or two is going to mean for you.
We have suppliers that supply us with fertilisers and seeds, none of which is just in time, so we have a certain amount of flexibility if we have problems with that. In turn, if we have problems supplying our customers with our product, we have the concern that we may lose sales as our competitors pick it up.
What many operations need to be doing now is contingency planning. What are you going to do when it fails, or if it fails? Don't worry about trying to replace it. Well, find some workaround solutions and some contingency plans, and that means working with your suppliers and your customers as well, because they are often an integral part of those plans.
We know by default, about a year ago I managed to, with the aid of a heater, blow up our general ledger. So we were without one for a week, but all we did was run on paper until such time as the new software package had been bought and we could data entry. But no, we are fully well aware that we can run by paper.
Yeah, we're confident that what we've managed to do with our systems will enable us to be there in the year 2000, meeting our customers' needs and retaining the partnership that we enjoy, and the business will continue to grow.
Well, I think WestpacTrust believes that it has a responsibility to the community. You know, we do have a fairly strong community focus, and to advise our customers who are part of that community that there is indeed a problem, to ensure that they are aware and that they're doing something about it. Yeah, we're just trying to help our customers manage the risks that they have in their business.
I hope this video presentation will have answered many of the questions you had about the Y2K problem. However, if you're running a business or other organisation and have not yet assessed its state of readiness, then this video should only be a beginning. Please act now. Be sure to seek professional advice as to how this problem can put your business at risk, and what you can and should do about it. If you're unsure as to how to go about that, please give us a call at the Y2K Readiness Commission. Phone 0900 Y2K Y2K. You'll also find more information about this problem at our website. Time is running out. The worst thing you could do is to do nothing. Please, act now. Be Y2K Wise.